The theosophical view regarding the constitution of the universe is more complex and encompassing than the one offered by modern science. This view postulates that in addition to the physical dimension, there are others that transcend the reach of our five senses and/or current technology, and are therefore beyond the field of scientific inquiry. According to the esoteric philosophy, the universe has 7 dimensions, or planes. Of these, the one that we are most familiar with is the lowest, densest, and most concrete of them, the physical plane. These dimensions, or planes, are not independent realities. They are different aspects of the one principle that is at the foundation of the cosmos, represented in this diagram by the highest plane. This ultimate reality is the homogeneous source of what we know as matter, energy, and consciousness. At the birth of the cosmos, this homogeneous principle gradually differentiates, forming all the other planes. This can be illustrated taking the phenomenon of light as an analogy. The highest plane represents white light, which contains within itself all of the prismatic colors. These different colors that can be seen as white light go through a prism represent the lower planes as they differentiate during the process of cosmic manifestation. We can then regard the highest plane as that of the universal spirit, sometimes identified with the Brahman of the Vedanta philosophy. Its first differentiation is the universal soul, also called alaya. The next plane is that of the universal mind, or mahat, the source of intelligence in the cosmos. The fourth is the plane of cosmic energy, or fohat, through which all forms are built. The following plane is that of the life principle, or jiva, by which forms are endowed with sentient life. The astral cosmic plane is what today we could call the plane of cosmic morphic fields, that is, a matrix of patterns which determine how physical forms will be shaped. Finally, we reach the objective plane, that which is composed of physical cosmic matter and falls within the field of scientific research. These planes grow denser in materiality as we descend from the 7th to the 1st. The highest plane is one of homogeneous unity, while the lowest is the one where separation is at its most extreme. Although the diagram shows the planes as layers, these dimensions are in actuality interpenetrating. Of the 3 highest planes, we can know very little. These are the divine and formless worlds of spirit. Our mind, at this point in evolution, cannot really grasp their nature. The 4 lower planes are the field in which evolution of the human, animal, plant, mineral, and elemental kingdoms take place.
Everything in the metaphysical, as in the physical universe, is septenary. Hence, every sidereal body, every planet, whether visible or invisible, is credited with 6 companion globes. The one eternal law unfolds everything on a 7-fold principle. The circular chains of worlds, composed of 7 globes, are graduated on the 4 lower planes. Out of these 7, only one, the lowest and the most material of those globes, is within our plane or means of perception. The 6 others lying outside of it and being therefore invisible to the terrestrial eye. Every such chain of worlds is the progeny and creation of another, lower and dead chain, its reincarnation, so to say.
The esoteric philosophy postulates that the evolution of life that we see taking place on Earth is part of a wider field of evolution transcending our planet. Closely associated with our world are 6 other globes, forming a planetary chain for the evolution of life. According to H.P. Blavatsky, however, these 6 globes are invisible since they do not belong to the physical plane. The 7 globes of the planetary chain to which our Earth belongs are positioned on the 4 lower cosmic planes, arranged in a particular way. The 2 higher globes, that is, the 2 most ethereal or immaterial of the series, are on the Phohatic plane. They are regarded as archetypal worlds. On the plane of Jiva, there are 2 more globes called creative worlds. 2 more globes are on the cosmic astral plane and are called the formative worlds. Finally, on the objective plane, there is only 1 globe, our physical Earth. As we can see, the Earth is the lowest world in the chain, indicated by a darker shading of color, and the only one that does not have a companion globe on its plane. This model also applies to other physical planets that belong to other planetary chains.
Darwinism only meets evolution at its midway point. That is to say, when astral evolution has given place to the play of the ordinary physical forces with which our present senses acquaint us. At the second round, or stage, his individuality is as dormant in him as that of a fetus during his period of gestation. He has no consciousness, no sense, for he begins as a rudimentary astral man and lands on our planet as a primitive physical man.
According to theosophical teachings, the scientific theory of evolution does not cover the whole process. It is concerned only with one station in a 7-fold journey. In this view, evolution begins on the spiritual planes, gradually descending further into matter. When it reaches the physical plane, the process is at its nadir. At this point, the evolutionary movement turns around and begins to ascend through the planes until it reaches the original starting point.
On the descending scale, every globe, down to our 4th sphere, the actual Earth, is a grosser and more material copy of the more shadowy sphere which precedes it in their successive order on the 3 higher planes. On its way upwards on the ascending arc, evolution spiritualizes and etherealizes, so to speak, the general nature of all, bringing it on to a level with the plane on which the twin globe on the opposite side is placed. The result being that when the 7th globe is reached, the nature of everything that is evolving returns to the condition it was in at its starting point. Plus, every time a new and superior degree in the states of consciousness.
The 7 stages of evolution take place on globes that constitute a planetary chain. Starting with the first globe, which is on the highest plane, life then moves on to the second globe in the series, which is on a lower plane. And from there, it passes on to the third globe, which is on a still lower plane. During the first 3 stages, spirit gradually descends into matter, approaching the lowest point, which is on the physical plane. On the descending arc of the process, spirit energizes matter and organizes it into forms, thus endowing it with certain powers, qualities, and attributes. Since these stages take place on non-physical planes, they are invisible to the scientific eye. Next comes the fourth stage, evolution on the physical plane. Here, spirit is wholly trapped in the living material forms, and the great battle between spirit and matter begins. At first, spirit is overpowered by matter. In time comes a point of balance, where neither has an advantage over the other. Eventually, spirit overcomes matter, and the fourth evolutionary stage is over. It is here that the evolutionary movement comes to its turning point and begins to ascend through the last three stages to complete the seven. During these higher stages, spirit perfects its mastery over matter and shapes it to become a fit vehicle for its expression. Three stages, then, of descent giving life to matter, one stage of struggle to master it, and three of ascent to shape it into a perfect vehicle. Although the seven globes of a chain exist simultaneously, they are not equally active at any given moment. Only one globe is fully active at a given time, evolving all of the kingdoms of nature, while the other six remain in a dormant condition or undergoing preparatory activities. Evolutionary movement begins in one of the archetypal worlds, which is generally referred to as Globe A in theosophical literature. On this globe are the ideal models of everything that, in the physical world, we see as objects and beings with a concrete form. After a vast period of time, evolution on this globe is accomplished, and life gradually moves on to the next, more concrete world, while Globe A falls into a state of rest called obscuration. The next globe, referred to as B, is a creative world. Here, the ideal archetypes assume a more concrete character and begin their movement towards becoming entities rather than abstract ideas. This is where what we can call creation begins. Things and entities come into being, although they do not have a particular form yet. Once the evolutionary process on this globe is over, life is transferred to the next one, on a yet more concrete plane, and Globe B falls into obscuration. On Globe C, the formative world, each entity develops a form of its own. This form, however, is astral, and therefore fluid and changeable. As life moves on, Globe C passes into obscuration. The objective world, Globe D, is our Earth. This is the culmination of downward progress, where everything assumes materiality and consistency. This globe is the inflection point where progress turns upward and continues developing in spirituality. After the struggle between matter and spirit on Globe D, life moves back to a formative world, Globe E, while planet Earth falls into a period of obscuration. From Globe E, life moves on to the creative world, Globe F, and from there back to the archetypal world, Globe G. Globe G is sometimes referred to as Globe Z. When life departs from Globe G, a whole round of evolution around the planetary chain has been completed. Next follows a period of general rest called pralaya. During this time, the divine sparks, called monads in theosophical literature, rest until a new evolutionary cycle begins. Let us now briefly examine the evolution of the different kingdoms round the 7 globes of the planetary chain. From the scientific perspective, evolution begins with inorganic matter forming organic molecules. This generates living beings with increasing levels of complexity. Theosophical teachings characterize this development as the evolution of the mineral, vegetable, animal, and human kingdoms of nature. These teachings, however, postulate an even wider field of evolution than the one comprised by these kingdoms. As Madame Blavatsky wrote,
There are processes of evolution which precede the mineral kingdom, and thus several waves of evolution precede the mineral wave in its progress round the spheres.
in addition to the 4 kingdoms mentioned, the esoteric philosophy proposes that there are 3 invisible pre-mineral evolutionary stages called elemental kingdoms. They are the first waves of evolution, preparing the globes for the development of the 4 succeeding kingdoms. The evolution of the various kingdoms on any globe do not begin simultaneously. A higher kingdom starts only after a lower one has prepared the conditions for its development. The elemental kingdoms are the first to begin their activity on the highest world, Globe A. Once their work is done, the door opens for the evolution of the mineral kingdom. The student must remember that Globe A is an archetypal world and not a physical planet. Therefore, when we talk about the mineral kingdom here, we are not talking about crystals and rocks, but rather the ideal models of them. These will become what we know as minerals only when they reach Globe D, the objective or physical world of the planetary chain. The same idea applies to the other kingdoms as well. A.P. Sinnett explained the sequence of evolution as life passes through the different globes as follows. Let us take up the process at the period when the first world of the series, Globe A, let us call it, is merely a congeries of mineral forms. The full development of the mineral epoch on Globe A prepares the way for the vegetable development. And as soon as this begins, the mineral life impulse overflows into Globe B. Then, when the vegetable development on Globe A is complete and the animal development begins, the vegetable life impulse overflows to Globe B, and the mineral impulse passes on to Globe C. Then, finally, comes the human life impulse on Globe A. As can be seen in this process, when the human monads begin their evolutionary journey on Globe A, the mineral wave is already active on Globe D, our Earth. This will result in the consolidation of the physical planet in preparation for the coming evolution of the other kingdoms. Once the evolution of the human kingdom, along with that of the lower kingdoms, is completed on Globe A, the human monads move onto Globe B, where minerals, vegetables, and animals are already evolving. Globe A then falls into a state of obscuration as the evolution of the various kingdoms continues moving forward. Once the human life wave reaches globe D, our evolution on Earth begins. At this point, the mineral kingdom starts consolidating globe G, the last sphere of our chain. When the process of evolution on globe D is completed, the human monads pass on to globe E, while globe D enters into obscuration. This process continues until, eventually, the human kingdom reaches globe G. When the evolution of all the kingdoms on globe G, sometimes it's called globe Z, has been completed, all the monads go into a period of rest called pralaya, where they stay until being reawakened for the next cycle of their evolutionary journey. The evolutionary life wave passing through all 7 globes is known as a round. The evolutionary goal of a planetary chain, however, cannot be reached in a single journey around the 7 globes. After a single round has been completed and the monads have rested in nirvana, a new journey begins.
We have traced man out of a round into the nirvanic state between Z and A. A was left in the last round dead. As the new round begins, it catches the new influx of life, reawakens to vitality, and begets all its kingdoms of a superior order to the last. After this has been repeated 7 times, comes a minor pralaya.
The new round begins with the reawakening of life on globe A, and the wave of evolution then passes on to globe B, and then on to globe C, D, E, F, and G, until the second round has been completed. 7 rounds of evolution are necessary before the monads evolving in every kingdom of nature are ready to move on to the next kingdom in a subsequent planetary chain. The consecutive rounds do not involve an empty repetition of development. The process can be better visualized if it were a spiral rather than a circle, where each new round takes place on a higher level of evolution than the one before. In the first 3.5 rounds, forms become more complex, organized, and concrete. Midway through the 4th round, on the physical plane, forms attain their maximum solidity. From this point on, in the 3.5 remaining rounds, the material forms etherealize and become subtler, so that they can become fit vehicles for the expression of the spirit.
Our Earth, as the visible representative of its invisible superior fellow globes, has to live, as have the others, through 7 rounds. During the first 3, it forms and consolidates. During the 4th, it settles and hardens. During the last 3, it gradually returns to its first ethereal form. It is spiritualized, so to say.
Our planet is halfway through its cycle of evolution. It is in the middle of the 4th round, which is the lowest point of the cycle, the turning point between the descending and the ascending arcs.
The succession of rounds is concerned with the development of the elements in the occult sense: fire, air, water, earth. However, we need to keep in mind that none of the so-called elements were in the 3 preceding rounds, as they are now.
When following the formation of the earth according to the way it is described by the esoteric philosophy, we see that in each round a new element is developed. By element, we do not mean the chemical elements, but those of the ancients: fire, air, water, and earth. Let us quickly review the stages of the earth during these 4 rounds. Since we have just finished the descending arc, the elements were developed in the order from the more spiritual to the more material.
The life impulse reaches A, or rather that which is destined to become A, and which so far is but cosmic dust. A center is formed in the nebulous matter of the condensation of the solar dust. Disseminated through space, and a series of 3 evolutions invisible to the eye of flesh occur in succession. That is to say, 3 kingdoms of elementals or nature forces are evoluted. In the first round, the globe, having been built by the primitive fire lives, that is, formed into a sphere, had no solidity nor qualifications, save a cold brightness, nor form nor color. It is only towards the end of the first round that it developed one element, which from its inorganic, so to say, or simple essence, became now in our round the fire we know throughout the system. The earth was in her first rupa, the essence of which is the Akashic principle.
In the first round, man is an ethereal being, non-intelligent but super-spiritual. In each of the subsequent races and subraces and minor races of evolution, he grows more and more into an encased or an incarnate being, but still preponderatingly ethereal. And like the animal and vegetable, he develops monstrous bodies correspondential with his coarse surroundings.
The second round brings into manifestation the second element, air, the purity of which would ensure continuous life to him who would use it. From the second round, Earth, hitherto a fetus in the matrix of space, began its real existence. It had developed individual sentient life, its second principle.
In the second round, he is still gigantic and ethereal, but growing firmer and more condensed in body, a more physical man, yet still less intelligent than spiritual. For mind is a slower and more difficult evolution than the physical frame, and the mind would not develop as rapidly as the body. When he reaches our earth, in the second round, he has become responsible in a degree.
The third round developed the third principle, water.
He has now a perfectly concrete or compacted body. At first, the form of a giant ape, and more intelligent, or rather cunning, than spiritual. For in the downward arc, he has now reached the point where his primordial spirituality is eclipsed or overshadowed by nascent mentality. In the last half of the third round, his gigantic stature decreases. His body improves in texture, and he becomes a more rational being, though still more an ape than a deva man.
The fourth round transformed the gaseous fluids and plastic form of our globe into the hard-crusted, grossly material sphere we are living on. Bhumi, or Earth, has reached her fourth principle. Earth will reach her true ultimate form only toward the end of the Manvantara, after the seventh round. In the middle of the fourth revolution, which is our present round, evolution has reached its acme of physical development, crowned its work with the perfect physical man, and from this point begins its work spiritward.
Intellect has an enormous development in this round. The dumb races will acquire our human speech on our globe, on which, from the fourth race, language is perfected and knowledge in physical things increases. At this halfway point of the fourth round, humanity passes the axial point of the minor Manvantaric circle. At this point, then, the world teems with the results of intellectual activity and spiritual decrease. In the first half of the fourth race, sciences, arts, literature, and philosophy were born, eclipsed in one nation, reborn in another. Civilization and intellectual development whirling in septenary cycles as the rest. While it is but in the latter half that the spiritual ego will begin its real struggle with body and mind to manifest its transcendental powers. Who will help in the forthcoming gigantic struggle? Who? Happy the man who helps a helping hand. There is not much information as to the future rounds in theosophical literature. The next element to be developed is ether, a subtler element than earth, because life now is on its ascending arc towards the spirit.
It will only be in the next or fifth round that the fifth element, ether, the gross body of Akasha, if it can be called even that, will, by becoming a familiar fact of nature to all men, as air is familiar to us now, cease to be as at present hypothetical, and also an agent for so many things. When the seventh and last round has been entered upon, the highest or first globe, A, followed by all the others down to the last, instead of entering upon a certain time of rest or obscuration, as in their previous rounds, begins to die out. The planetary dissolution, pralaya, is at hand, and its hour has struck. Each globe has to transfer its life and energy to another planet.
The evolutionary journey around a planetary chain comes to an end after the life wave has gone around the chain of globes 7 times. At this point, the planetary chain dies, and each of its globes are dissolved, one by one. Just as in the case of human beings, the planetary spirit that animated the chain will be reborn in a new chain of globes, which, from an evolutionary point of view, will be on a higher level than that of the preceding incarnation. H.P. Blavatsky explains the concept of the rebirth of a planetary chain, using as an example the formation of the Earth chain from the preceding one, the lunar chain. According to the esoteric philosophy, the moon was not always a satellite of the Earth. In the far distant past, it was a planet which had its own 6 invisible companion globes and was the field of previous cycles of evolution on the physical plane.
When a planetary chain is in its last round, its globe A, before finally dying out, sends all its energy and principles into a neutral center of latent force, a Lya center, and thereby informs a new nucleus of undifferentiated substance or matter. In other words, calls it into activity or gives it life.
Once the lunar chain has completed its seventh round, its globes begin to die and enter into a process of dissolution. Then, the physical globe of that planetary chain became what we now call our moon, revolving around its new incarnation, the planet Earth. The 7 globes on the left represent the lunar chain at the beginning of its 7th and last round. The group of sparks on the right represent the Lya centers on which the new Earth chain, not yet in existence, is to be built. When occultists conceive of matter in its Lya state, it is considered to be in a zero state, where substance becomes homogeneous. A Lya center is the mystical point where a thing disappears from one plane and passes onwards to reappear on another plane. In the 7th round of the lunar chain, when the last kingdom of life leaves globe A, that globe, instead of falling into a state of obscuration, as it has done in previous rounds, begins to die, or in other words, it goes into its planetary pralaya. A similar process takes place for each of the globes of the lunar chain, one after another, each forming a fresh globe in the Earth chain. Our present moon was the 4th globe of the lunar chain and was on the same plane of perception as our Earth. Eventually, the monads pass from globe G, the last of the lunar chain, into the nirvana which awaits them between the two chains. When globe A of the new chain is ready, the first class or hierarchy of monads from the lunar chain incarnate upon it in the lowest kingdom, and so on successively. In an article entitled On Cosmic Cycles, Manvantaras in Rounds, which is found in Volume 13 of H.P. Blavatsky's collected writings, she gives some information about the duration of rounds and humanity on each planet in the 4th round of the Earth chain. However, at the end of the article, she gives a disclaimer as to the exactness of the numbers given.
We have already stated that the above figures are exact if the exoteric calculations of the Brahmins about the day of Brahma be correct. But we may again state here that the figure is not correctly given out in exoteric numbers. We may, however, add that the explanations given by us about the progressions, etc., are facts and can be faithfully utilized when any one of the above described figures are correctly known in calculating all the rest of the figures. And these processes we have explained because we know that not one of the exact numbers will ever be given out, as they pertain to the mysteries of initiations and to the secrets of the occult influence of numbers.
Madame Blavatsky indicates that the explanations in the article about the arithmetic progressions are facts and can be faithfully utilized in calculating all the rest of the figures. It is important to understand that it is the proportions that are correct and not necessarily the numbers. Let us take a closer look at the proportions. The left column shows the duration in years that humanity spends in each of the 7 rounds of our chain, the Earth chain. The total number at the bottom is 8 years short of 4,320,000,000 years, otherwise known as a kalpa. In the series of numbers given in each of the columns, we observe the septenary arithmetic progression of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, where the common difference is the duration of the first round. So, for example, the duration of the second round is twice that of the first round. The third round is 3 times the duration of the first round, and so on. If we take the duration of the fourth round, which is shown in the first column, and expand it in the center column, we see that it shows the duration in years that humanity spends on each globe of the fourth round, our current round, during periods of activity. The sum of the years of Manvantaric activity in the fourth round is over 308 million years and is equal to 1/2 of the time spent in the fourth round. The other half of the time is spent in pralaya, or rest. In a chain, the period of rest in every round is equal to that of its activity. 44,081,632, the total number of years that humanity spends on globe D, Earth, in the fourth, our current round, is expanded in the right column. Applying to this period the same arithmetic progression, we obtain the duration of each race in our present round on our planet Earth. Again, applying the same arithmetic progression, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, to the duration of each round, we can then calculate the duration of activity on each globe in each of the 7 rounds and visualize the pattern and its proportions. The first group of 7 bars on the left represents the duration of activity on each of the globes during the first round. The second group of 7 bars represents the duration of activity on each globe of the second round, and so forth, moving to the right until we reach the last group of 7 bars representing the 7th round. Note that the duration of activity on globe A in the 7th round is equal to the duration of activity on globe G in the first round. This graphic adds the duration of the period of rest between rounds, or pralaya, and it is represented by the tall green bars to the right of each group. The duration of pralaya is equal to the sum of the durations of activity, or manvantara, on each of the 7 globes. In this graphic, based on the same temporal data used in the previous graphics, we add an arbitrary vertical dimension represented by the y-axis representing spirit and matter. The most material point is placed in the middle of the period of activity in the 4th round. The x-axis represents time in years, the full scale being 4,320,000,000 years. The bars at the top of the graphic represent the duration of each round in the Earth chain. As can be seen, they fit the arithmetic progression 1 through 7, and the common difference which is the duration of the first round, is represented by the vertical lines of the grid in the background. The descending and ascending curves of the main plot line represent periods of activity or manvantara, while the flat horizontal sections of the line represent periods of rest or pralaya. During the first 3 rounds, the curves that represent periods of activity are descending, and during the last 3 rounds, the 5th, 6th, and the 7th, curves representing periods of activity are ascending, indicating that matter is progressively becoming more spiritualized. The period of activity in the 4th round contains both an ascending arc and a descending arc, and is the turning point towards spiritualization. The orange vertical line approximates the current point in time and is set at approximately 1 billion years since the beginning of the Earth chain. The point in time is calculated by adding the durations of the first 3 rounds to the durations of the first 3 globes of the 4th round and to 18,618,725, which is the figure that HPB gives as the number of years passed since the Dhyan Chohan, known as Manu Vaivasvata, inaugurated the human Manvantara on planet D in the present round. The gray vertical line represents the midpoint of the duration of the chain and is simply the duration of the 7 rounds divided by 2. And when it is superimposed on the arithmetic progression representing the planetary rounds, it lands approximately in the middle of the pralaya of the 5th round. The circle, the area which we are about to zoom into, depicts the period of activity in the 4th round. This time, the bars at the top of the graphic represent the duration of human activity on each globe in the 4th round of the Earth chain. Again, as can be seen, they fit the 1 through 7 arithmetic progression. But this time, the common difference is the duration of human activity on globe A, which is represented by the vertical lines of the grid in the background. The y-axis is again an arbitrary value representing spirit and matter. The most material point is placed in the middle of the period of activity on globe D, Earth, and the x-axis represents time in years, the full scale being about 300 million years. This time, the descending and ascending curve of the main plot line represents periods of human activity on each globe in the 4th round. During the first 3 globes, A, B, and C, the curves are descending, and during the last 3 globes, E, F, and G, they are ascending, again indicating that matter is becoming more spiritualized. The period of activity on the 4th globe contains both a descending as well as an ascending arc. Again, the orange vertical line approximates the current point in time within the 4th round and is set at approximately 84 million years and is coincident with the orange line on the previous graphic representing the number of years since the beginning of the Earth chain. The current point in time is calculated by adding the durations of the first 3 globes to 18,618,725, which is the figure that HPB gives out as the number of years since the beginning of the human Manvantara on globe D in the 4th round. As we are currently in the 5th race on the 4th globe in the 4th round, we have passed the midpoint of the evolutionary cycle of our planetary chain with respect to the arithmetic progression about 6 million years ago. the midpoint of the evolutionary cycle being designated as the midpoint of the fourth race on the fourth globe in the fourth round. We still have about 25 million years to go before we reach the end of activity on globe D, and we have about 69 million years before we reach the temporal midpoint of activity in the fourth round. This is illustrated in the following graphic. This graphic shows where we currently are with respect to certain halfway points in the evolutionary cycles of the Earth chain. The bottom bar, labeled rounds, shows the duration of the periods of activity and rest, distributed horizontally and proportioned as per the arithmetic series. The common difference is the duration of the first round, which includes both periods of rest and activity, and whose duration is represented by the vertical grid lines. The raised green areas on the bottom bar show the periods of activity during a round, and the flat gray areas indicate periods of rest. One way of defining the halfway point of the fourth round is with respect to the arithmetic progression. This may be defined as midway through the fourth race on globe D in the fourth round. This point has already occurred about 6 million years ago, as we are currently in the fifth race. This point is represented by the second bar from the bottom, which is colored blue. The orange bar, labeled now, which is third from the bottom, indicates the current point in time, which is, as we said, about 1 billion years since the beginning of the Earth chain. Another halfway point may be defined as the temporal midpoint of activity in the fourth round, and that would place humanity on globe E when it occurs. This would occur in about 69 million years and is represented by the second bar from the top and is also colored blue. Yet another halfway point may be defined as the total duration of the Earth chain divided by 2 and occurs about 2 billion years after the birth of the chain. This point is represented by the top bar, which is colored gray. We will not reach this point for another 1 billion years, which occurs during the pralaya of the fifth round. This graphic shows where we are with respect to the fourth globe, or globe D, in the fourth round of the Earth chain and to the beginning and end of the fifth race. Activity on the fourth globe in the fourth round began about 992 million years after the beginning of the Earth chain. The fifth race began about 15 million years after the start of activity on the fourth globe. Our current point in time is about 2 million years after the start of the fifth race and about 5 million years before the end of it. According to this model, activity on the fourth globe will cease in about 25 million years. This final animation compresses the 4,320,000,000 years of the Earth chain's 7 rounds into about 2 3/4 minutes. The timing of the animation is based on the arithmetic progression.